I asked loads of my friends if you had to ask one question of Thom Yorke, what would it be?
Why are you such a miserable bastard? I think, actually, to be honest, I think half the problem is that I have a certain sort of voice that can make things sound worse than they are.
It wasn't about you being miserable. They wanted to ask you if you thought the best thing you ever did was...
I okay a computer? That's funny, because people used to say the Bends.
What do you think about that?
So maybe give them another 5 years, maybe they'll say Kid A, maybe not.
What made you feel you wanted to do something on your own?
Mostly it was to do with the fact that there was a sort of growing pile of things that I wanted to finish that would have been extremely dull if it had been a band thing, because they were done on computers. You know, it was all programming, and it wouldn't have really made sense to sit around with all five of us gazing at a screen.
The lyrics on the Eraser, they're very provocative, some of them, aren't they?
Are they?
Well, I found them so, and...
Oh, OK, good, I think.
There's the song about David Kelly. What made you want to write a song about that?
The whole Hutton whitewash and the mewing and crying of Alistair Campbell, and then all the lies about going to war in the first place, and la la la, and going to these, going to these protests with people on the line in the streets, even school kids, and all this sort of madness going on. And then in the middle of it, this one poor guy who just seemed to end up being like the focus of a certain terrible energy.
Do you hope or deliberately set out to try and provoke people to think about some of these things through your lyrics?
I don't have a problem with writing about things that may be seen as political, but I don't really think it's not political music. It's just part of what's in front of me.
Do you write almost a sort of kind of catharsis?
Desperately trying to write songs that are fantastical and make life-affirming in the sort of all the right ways, but I personally think that that's what the music's supposed to do. And if you write the words correctly, you could be absorbing all this stuff, but really the whole point is the music flows over you. Music basically is like mathematics, you're trying to form patterns that make you understand what is around you, and patterns that help you get through the next day. Like when I listen to the radio and stuff, and I hear a new piece of music that I've just got to get a hold of it, because I know it's going to help me through a particular thing until the next one, or it's like life-affirming. The whole point of music is it's life-affirming. The sickness of it for me, the bit I couldn't deal with, was that somehow this is a reason to exist. And somehow you get to a certain level or whatever of exposure or fame or whatever, and then suddenly you can communicate with other famous people on a higher level. And like waft around going, hi. And that was I just kind of thought that was a bit peculiar.
Do you think there's a sort of upside to being, well known, in that you can have huge influence?
I don't think you do. I think all you do is you turn on the media that week for 20 seconds to something, and then they turn on to the next thing. I don't think you have influence as such. All you do is that, and then that might get someone to sort of vaguely rethink about one little thing. But there's, I don't think. I think people are perfectly capable of making their own decisions, and God help them if they listen to me.
If you could pick one song that you'd like to be remembered by, what would it be?
How to Disappear, off Kid A.
Why?
Because it's the most beautiful thing we ever did, I think. We have this really amazing situation where I'm not quite sure whether it happens with other bands, but we have all these unofficial sites that are really like on top of what we're doing, more on top of what we're doing than we are. And our site itself is just like this mad sort of collage thing of our thoughts, and also a really good way of getting directly to people when we want to. So it's always been, from about Kid A onwards, it's been a source of directly trying to circumnavigate the media, and the media having to follow what's happening on the internet rather than the other way round. It sort of works to varying degrees, but I personally think that for Radiohead, it's what we do on the internet is much more important than except for like live performances on TV. It's by far the most important thing for us, and it has been for ages, because it's like it's not very it's like messy, and it's not very coherent and whatever, but it's us, you know, and it's what we choose to put across, other than making music all the time.
And do you feel that relationship has deepened over the years with your fan base?
I think so. I mean, the most fun we have is when we do these things, the webcast things that we used to do, and we still do sometimes, which is just it's this mad situation where, you know, thousands of people are watching, and you know, and they're talking about what you're doing, and you can see it on one screen, and you're seeing what you're doing on the other, and with this, you know, you like a pirate TV thing, and that's really, you get massive buzz out of that. And also you have that other thing where we play all these new songs, and they're immediately up on YouTube, recorded on people's phones and things, and there's an entire sort of energy to that whole thing, which is completely outside of your Sunday supplement music critics or whatever, which I think I find really exciting. It's really amazing, especially when we travel, when we go to America and stuff, how important it's been for us, and how there's sort of like an honesty about our relationship we have with the fans when it's through that, which I think is great. I don't like having mediators with their own agendas. Obviously, no one would, given the choice.
And do the fans sort of send you sort of nutty things? In which case, what's the nuttiest?
Oh, no. No, not really.
Oh, you know,
I mean,
that's because you're not famous enough, obviously, anymore.
No, we used to get the nutty thing. No, now you have people saying, "That was great the way you changed the chord in the end of it." And you're like, okay.
Is that worse or better?
No, that's all right. You know, sometimes they're right. Sometimes you really should put that verse back in. Okay.